He thought about dying, but he decided to live as with more purpose than anyone with their whole body. Have you ever been ashamed of simply existing, not ashamed of something you did, but ashamed of being who you are, of waking up and already feeling like you're wrong, of walking around with the feeling that you don't belong, that no one really sees you, that if you disappeared, maybe no one would notice? Have you ever felt like you were born wrong? That there's something in you that makes the world always push you to the sidelines, as if the whole world had been given a manual, except you, as if everyone was moving forward, growing, living, and you were stuck, trapped in a routine that doesn't make sense, in a life you didn't choose, in a body or a past that doesn't represent you. Sometimes we don't even know where we started to get lost. He just knows he's not who he used to be, and maybe you can't even imagine who you'd like to be anymore. Maybe you're still smiling on the outside, but inside you're exhausted. Maybe you have dreams that you don't even tell anyone about anymore, because you've hurt yourself too much trying. Maybe you've tried so many times that now the fear of trying again is greater than the desire to change. Or maybe you've never really tried, because from the beginning they said you wouldn't amount to anything, and without realizing it, you believed it. But listen to me with an open heart now. Every turn begins in silence. Not with shouting, not with an audience, not with an announcement. It starts the moment you decide to continue, even if you don't know how. It starts the moment you say to yourself, "I'm not done yet." Nick felt this every day, not because someone said it, but because he saw it in their eyes, in the look of pity, of strangeness, of silent judgment. He felt it in the muffled laughter, in the distance, in the absence of questions, as if his existence were such an obvious mistake that silence was the only possible reaction. He had no arms, he had no legs, but that wasn't what hurt the most. What really hurt was what no one saw. It was the feeling of being broken inside, of seeing no future, of looking in the mirror and asking yourself, why me? Why like this? The pain wasn't just physical, it was invisible. It was the sound of a soul screaming in a silent body. There were days when he felt like he only existed to be an example of what not to be, as if he were a walking reminder that life can be cruel. And no one asked him how he was. They only asked him how he did things, how he showered, how he ate, how he wrote. But no one asked him how he felt. At age 10, he wanted to die, not for drama, not to draw attention, but because he honestly felt that there was no point in continuing, that everything would be easier if it ended there, that if he had a choice. He would choose to leave, quietly, without disturbing anyone, but even at the edge of the end, something inside him still whispered, a spark, a tiny point of resistance, a question that changed everything. What if, even though I could mean something? What if, even without a body, he could still have a soul? What if, even without form, he could still have an impact? Maybe you've never experienced anything like it on the outside, but on the inside, maybe you have. Maybe you've also thought about giving up. Maybe not literally on life, but on trying, on dreaming, on believing. Maybe you're tired, silently tired, exhausted of not being seen, of carrying unanswered questions, nameless pain, desires that no one understands, fears that you hide even from yourself. This story is about that, about pain that no one sees, and about decisions that no one hears, but that change everything. If you've ever felt this way, write in the comments, "I've wanted to disappear." No shame, no filter. It's safe here, and watch until the end. Because what happened to Nick might rekindle something inside you too. Like it now if it touched you in any way. Subscribe to the channel, because here, every story is a spark. Every video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. If this story has already stirred something inside you, imagine what comes at the end. He was born with a rare condition, no arms, no legs. As a child, he was the target of bullying, rejection. He grew up wondering why. At the age of 10, he seriously considered killing himself. "I felt like I would never be valuable, never be loved, only via limitation. I only felt pain." But what no one tells you is what it's like to live trapped inside yourself. Nick, couldn't run when he was scared, couldn't hide when everything hurt. He couldn't even defend himself when the world came at him with everything. I stood there, exposed, vulnerable, seeing, hearing, feeling, everything. The school was a war zone. The look on his colleagues' faces said it all. Some laughed, others avoided, and the rest pretended he didn't exist. Worse than the mockery was the indifference, the icy silence in the playground, the groups that moved away, the whispers that stopped when he passed. The label was invisible, but heavy. He carried the poor thing without asking. At home, the pain didn't go away. Even with love, even with care, the mirror always returned the same question. Why was I made this way? There was no answer, just emptiness, a void that grew. There were days when he cried himself to sleep in silence, because I didn't want to worry anyone. He learned to smile with his mouth and scream with your heart. He started avoiding photos. He started to hate birthdays. I hated being the center of attention, not because he was shy, but because he knew everyone looked at him with pity, as if they were thinking, how sad. Imagine his life, and he imagined it too. I imagined the future, and I saw nothing. How to work, how to get married, how can you take care of someone if you can't even take care of yourself? Nick began to believe it was a factory error, a bad joke from the universe. I felt like it was just work, that the world would have been lighter if he didn't exist. At age 10, he dragged himself into the bathtub, planned everything. He took a deep breath and he let the body fall. The plan was simple. Stay underwater until you can't feel anything anymore. But the body did not cooperate. He wasn't even fit to die. Returned to the surface, wet, trembling, not from the cold, of shame. He felt he had failed even in that. The pain increased, the silence grew, the days began to lose their taste, hope became a distant noise. The dreams? They were destroyed before they were even born. Every time he saw someone run, he felt it. Every time he saw a handshake, he felt it. Every time someone said, "You can do anything," he screamed inside, "I can't even get up from the floor." Television showed heroes. The school showed winners. The church spoke of miracles, but no one talked about someone like him. He felt out of the equation of life, a part that came defective, a useless body, an existence without a manual. The pain wasn't just his. It was the pain of feeling invisible to God, to think that not even the sky was looking at him, and it was in that place, no map, no light, no way out, that he stayed, trapped inside one's own mind, hostage of one's own body, and suffocated by his own soul. This is where many give up, some in silence, others little by little, some still breathe, but they no longer live. If you've ever been in that dark place, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you're in it now. Maybe there's nothing missing on the outside, but inside, everything is in ruins. Right here in the comments. I felt like this because only those who have felt it understand. If this story has already touched something inside you, imagine what comes at the end. Subscribe now and stay with us. But one day, something turned inside. It wasn't a scream. It was a thought, faint at first, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a question he had never let finish. Is it? What if the pain is not the end? What if there is a reason? Not a reason that makes it all worth it right away, but a purpose that cannot yet be seen. Nick didn't get out of bed with courage. He didn't go around shouting that he was going to change the world. There was no heavenly light, no internal applause. There was silence. He was afraid. He had doubts. But in the midst of all this, he had a choice. Choose to continue, just for one more day. Not because everything was fine, but because something inside him wanted to understand. Why am I still here? That day, he was sitting on the floor. He looked around and only saw the usual. The same walls, the same silence, the same body, but inside him something was no longer the same. It was almost imperceptible, but it was real. He picked up a pen with his mouth. He pulled out a paper with effort and he wrote a short sentence. With clumsy, Features, but with soul. My life can still be of some use. Good au papel, he kept it under his pillow. He didn't show it to anyone, he didn't even talk about it. But there, a spark ignited, and she wouldn't erase it anymore. That was the first invisible decision. It wasn't about success, it wasn't about fame. It was about not giving up on one's own existence, about giving yourself one more chance, about even without having answers, keep asking questions. In the following days, he began to look different. The body was still the same, the pain still hurt, shame still visited. But something inside him saw everything with different eyes. As if, for the first time, there was a distance between suffering and identity. I am not the pain, I am not the mistake. I am someone, and even if no one understands it now, and nobody saw that, no one commented. It didn't go viral. He didn't appear in the family photos. But it was in that moment, in that almost invisible gesture, that history began to change. There a new version of Nick was born, still fragile, still insecure, but alive, willing, open to the possibility of being more than a statistic. This is what many people don't understand. Change doesn't start with applause, it starts in the dark. In a moment that no one notices, in a promise that only you hear, and that's why she's powerful. If you are in this place right now, between pain and maybe between the end and doubt, write here in the comments, I'm still trying, because that's where the spark is born. And if this touched you, if you're still here with me, leave your like now. This helps this video reach someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will show you what happens when an invisible decision finds the right time. The decision was invisible, but time began to make it visible. Not overnight, not like magic, but as a seed, something small that grows, even if no one sees it. Nick began accepting invitations to speak, first at schools, then at churches. Sitting there, his heart racing, his voice choked, he told his story. No drama, no self-pity, just true. The pain of having thought about dying, the silent choice to continue. And what, he said, touched. People who never cried, cried. Broken, hardened young people looked at him as if they were finding something they had lost inside themselves. Silent adults, parents, teachers, leaders. Everyone saw there not just someone who survived, but someone who won, no arms, no legs, but with a presence that filled the room, not by appearance, but for the soul. The rooms became auditoriums. The auditoriums became stages. The stages became stadiums. Nick has spoken in over 70 countries, at the UN, at universities, in prisons. He spoke to heads of state. He spoke to orphaned children. He spoke to people who, like him, wondered if life was still worth living. And every time he told his story, a new spark was lit in someone. It was as if his pain had learned to serve, as if every tear he had ever cried now turned into water for someone who was dry inside. He wrote books, more than 10, works translated into dozens of languages, books that were not born from the hands, but from the heart, created an institute. He lived what he never imagined he would live. He married a woman who loves the essence. He had children. He was a father. It was an example. It was an answer. That boy who thought about drowning in the bathtub. Today he dives into other people's stories to rescue those who are drowning. He didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be useful. And that was exactly what made the world stop and listen. The media surrendered. The interviews came. The documentaries. The TV shows. But what stood out the most was always the same. The way he looked at each person, as if to say, without saying, I also thought it wasn't worth it. But look where choosing to continue can take you. And yes, he heard beautiful things afterwards, but none as striking as what he said to himself on that folded paper. My life can still be of some use. Today, the world is living proof of this. The invisible boy became a worldwide symbol of overcoming. The factory error became a reference on purpose. The rejected boy became a voice for those who never had one. And it all started with a decision that no one saw. A choice in the dark, made in silence, just between him and himself. And you, what part of your story seems to have no way out today? What pain has been visiting your mind when no one is looking? What thought have you been hiding? even from yourself, just so you can get through the day without falling apart. It was like that with Nick. It's like that with everyone who one day changed their own history, and it can be the same with you. If you've made it this far in this video, that already says a lot about you. Maybe it hurts right now. Maybe you're at a point where even breathing feels heavy. But if something inside you is still listening, still trying to understand, still here with me, then you still have what you need. Presence. Presence is strength. It is invisible resistance. It is faith that is not always felt, but is practiced. When was the last time you stopped and asked yourself, what is the invisible decision I need to make today? It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. Sometimes you just have to decide not to sabotage yourself this time. Just decide not to run away, to stay, to feel. Face. You may not know where this is going, but you already know where denying all of this has brought you. So why not change the path for once? Right here in the comments. I'm still here. 3 words that seem simple but say a lot. They say, I didn't give up. They say, I want to change. They say, this story touched me. And maybe, by writing this, you too will begin to write your own turnaround. Nick started like this, with a sentence, a choice, a folded paper under the pillow. What about you? What can you start today? The difference between the great and the forgotten is not luck, nor talent, nor physique. That's what they decide in silence. It's your decision now, because yes, you too can be a story the world wants to hear. But first of all, it needs to be a story you choose to live. What was your quietest decision to date? The one that no one saw but that changed something inside you? Right here in the comments, because when you share, someone recognizes themselves. And when we recognize ourselves, we start to change. If this story touched any part of what's hidden inside you, leave your like now. Not for the video, but for what you felt. And subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with us. Here, every step is respected. Every pain is understood. Every new beginning is welcome. Want to be inspired by more real stories of people who were discredited, humiliated, discarded, and still turned the tables? Click on the video that appears here on the screen and continue this journey of transformation. Because yes, there is still strength within you, and each new story is a reminder that yours is still being written.